Ladies and gentlemen, the world's #1 sports and recreation podcast, Cheap Heat, is back. Joining me from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, it is the physically strong
That's right.
Statguy Greg. How are you, SGG?
I'm doing good, P. What's going on?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
What does that hat say? It looks like you're celebrating something.
Oh, this hat with the
Oh,
R
yeah.
on it? Yeah, well, this is the only hat I can wear of my team from yesteryear because it doesn't say the name of the team. It just has an R on it, but it says Super Bowl champions. I'm wearing it because, A, I'm very proud of this football team, and also our guest today, my friend Vic Joseph, is a proud Cleveland Browns fan. And as I texted you on Sunday morning, we just absolutely kicked the shit out of you guys. I am so sorry about that.
You didn't even have to pause your vulgarity right there. As you can see, I'm wearing the Brownies elf because I wasn't going to back down today for my Cleveland Browns. But I will say, my wife asked me, what do you think of the game today? Because we were at her parents' house. I said, they're going to get smoked.
And wasn't the line bizarre? What a weird line from Vegas that we were only 3-point favorites, right?
I thought it was weird. I thought it was weird too because look, there's no offensive line, there's no accountability, there's no coaching. The quarterbacks, the quarterback is a quarterback. We can go into a different direction with that. Defense isn't playing as good, so I think everybody bought into the hype. I certainly did, and this is a bad football. Dude, they are historically bad for the first 5 weeks since 1999.
Which is crazy too, because we were just in a place where things were looking up. And then in like maybe the most Cleveland Brown-like thing in history, the quarterback thing has become such a mind-blowing debacle that like you went from being on the rise to being historically bad in I'm like, not even just saying this to be that guy. I legit feel bad for people. And by the way, the Browns are one of the most popular teams, I'd say, in the locker room. Like there are a lot of Cleveland Brown people around in WWE. It's a bad time for you guys. It's just terrible.
It's odd because you watch it and you have all this hope and you always say, I'm not falling for this crap again. And we fell for it again. And it's just miserable. I mean, there's nothing more. The best time of football was like last 6 weeks of last year when everyone was wacko for Flacco.
Yeah.
Now it's just, I mean, I even bought a jersey and I hate jerseys. I bought a Joe Flacco jersey and I am very much against jerseys. And I was all in, and now it's just you sit there. I tried to switch shirts. I put the flag up at a different time. It's like I'm trying anything I can do.
Anything
I got my little man shed. I haven't even watched a game in my man shed yet.
All right, we'll move on to wrestling, but I will just say in closing, now the one thing, and this is so messed up, this is dark, but I feel like if you're a Browns fan, you have to secretly hope that the criminal charges against Deshaun Watson happen and he gets convicted and it nullifies his contract.
Super dark.
No, SGG, it's super dark, but it's the only way out of this nightmare deal. And obviously the ultimate hope would be he's not a monster and didn't do the things he's accused of. But if he did, you have to hope he gets convicted. So I think that would end up nullifying his contract. You guys are stuck with him. What is it? It was $300 million or something? It was insane.
250 million guaranteed. I mean, it's okay. He's only going to get paid 72 million next year, and the year after that. I mean, it's all right. I'll digress.
No. It's just he just makes like 20 million more than Steph Curry. It's no big deal.
It's great.
It's light work.
Throw the football. Right. Just keep checking down for 2 yards and 2 yards. It's great.
Made our defense, which has struggled at times, look like the 85 Bears this past weekend. But
it was miserable.
So NXT. CW, baby, the voice of NXT, our guy Vic Joseph. I gotta say, do you feel like you've had a long journey in wrestling? You got to WWE from doing indies, doing it all. Do you feel like in what you have going to NXT right now, you've kind of found your home and your sweet spot?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I mean, I don't want to lie to anybody that's listening. You and I have had a lot of conversations in the locker room over the last 8 years or so. I think people forget that I came from sports, that I did 4 NBA finals, a World Series, the Olympics, the NFL. I've interviewed everyone from Kobe to LeBron. Like I did all that. All that was to get here to the WWE. I mean, this isn't just, I think sometimes you see on social media of, oh, he's just another announcer they hired. Like, no, this is my dream job. Like I put a lot into each and every week. But it has been quite the journey, man. Like, you start off on 205. I mean, I was signed in January of 17 is when I started, and that May I was quote unquote called up. I did my first PLE 6 months almost to the day that I signed or that I started. So then it was 205 live, then it was mixed match challenge, then it was main event, then it was, hey, can you do live events? I was doing 270 events a year. That's not travel. That's a year. NXT UK, remember that? I was going over to Europe 4 days a month, every month for 2 years. Never batted an eye. And then I got the call to do Monday Night Raw. And I will say, because a lot of people talk about, my time on Raw, and it was short. If I didn't have that experience, man, and Rose, you'll know this more than a lot of people listening. If I didn't have that failure, I would not have known how to succeed. And so with that, coming back in 2020 with NXT, I've been in the seat ever since. I have felt that every year I've gotten better, and I do feel that it's like my home. It's, for lack of a better phrase, my show. You listen to SmackDown, you think Michael Cole, you think Joe Tesseract. I don't think I've ever been, no matter what show I did, thought of in that way. Thought of, oh, that's Vic's show. Oh, Michael Cole's on. Oh, Tess is on. Oh, Corey Graves is on. And I feel that now.
It's interesting you use the word failure though, because I thought your run on Raw was a success, at least from the fan standpoint and what you brought to the show. But you used the word
Thank you.
failure there.
Checks in the mail.
So yeah, why explain? Like, first of all, how did you think you did? Because like I agree with SGG. I mean, you were in a very tough spot. The second I saw how quickly it happened, I knew you were in a tough spot, and this was the era when the shuffling was out of control, trying to
Yeah.
figure out who would fit. But yeah, to me, it wasn't a failure in terms of your performance. I obviously know the result wasn't what you were looking for, but how did you view what you did, and specifically, what did you learn from the experience?
I look at it as a failure because if it wasn't a failure, I'd still be doing the show. That's how I look at it. And so I didn't do my job, and because I didn't do my job up to the ability of certain individuals, they had to make a decision. I thank Paul Heyman for giving me that opportunity. I just saw Paul recently at Raw, and we always go back and forth, and I always pick his brain, but he always tells me, "You didn't fail." Every time I see him, he goes, "Hey, just remember, you didn't fail. It just was a bad situation." I look at it a little bit differently, so I'm a little bit harder on myself. But man, I can tell you, if you go back and listen to 2019 Vic Joseph and you listen to 2024 Vic Joseph, it is night and freaking day. Because when I was doing Raw, I couldn't handle doing a graphic and a transition and getting back into call the match. And I was working with Jerry Lawler at the time, who has seen it all. And it was moving so fast. We're talking about football. Daniel's the quarterback for the Commanders. It slowed down already for him. But
Yeah.
man, when I got in there, I was like that number one pick, and everything was moving so fast, and I just wasn't doing fundamentals. I was out of my comfort zone. And to get taken from that show and to do what I'm doing now, I do all the graphics, I do all the transitions, I do all the kicks, I do all the sends and all that, and that is by design. And that is what I've taken the most from it. Is people listen, they go, "Man, that's smooth. Hey, you've gotten so much better." I had to, or I wouldn't be here. And that's just the honest to God's truth about it. And so I took a lot from that Raw run that had to happen for me to get to where I am now. It had to happen.
We just talked about this when Tess started. Um, and I was basically just putting over how seasoned that guy is, because the idea that he sat down in the seat and sounded as confident as he did, it's just, listen, it's literally the difference between you coming in as a rookie and when Joe Tess got this job. This is a guy who's already done Monday Night Football. You had a good run in broadcasting. Sitting in that seat is different. He sat in that seat in so many shows. It's an unusual thing. Like, I don't think I can properly describe how hard it is. And when you sit there listening, like in the TV locker room, there's a monitor and headset, and you can pick up the headset and just listen to what is going on. And it's madness. I mean, it can be, and I'm sure it's slowed down from where it was at different times. But either way, it's just so much going on. And to your point, Vic, you have like the show now. NXT is such a smooth broadcast. Book is just going to show up and be Book.
Love
And
him.
is it nice knowing that you don't have a guy, for lack of a better word, who gives a damn about getting his shit in? I mean, this is a guy who's just going to show up and make jokes and have fun, and you know that you're going to handle the business. Does that simplify things?
Let me throw it to you this way. I had one of the music producers that always brings in a Sexy Red or a Hardy or a Jelly Roll, came up to me and he said, "Hey man, I got to tell you, you make our job so much easier, because when you told Book when Sexy Red came out in June that if he stood up he was going to tip over the table, we lost it." And I did it live on air. And that's the other part is I have so much freedom with Book. Wade Barrett got my confidence back, right? Wade and Beth both did. I got my master's degree. Working with Book, I'm getting my doctorate. And he is the perfect broadcast colleague for me to work with right now, because at the end of the day, going back to what we said with Raw, falls on me. And so I have him ready to go, and I trust whatever he's going to say. I just have to be able to pick it up and run with it. And that's the beauty of it, because when he says something, I don't know what he's going to say. I never know anything Booker T is going to say, hand to God, any week we're on Tuesdays. And what you're hearing from me is my actual genuine reaction. I mean, it is awesome. It's the best broadcast partner I've ever worked with in any sport and anything down. I can't say enough good things about Booker, man. Like, and you've worked with him on the countdown shows. You don't know what he's going to say or how he's going to act, and that's part of the fun. And Cody Rhodes told me when the switch happened. I was in Italy actually when all this switching went on, and 2 years ago I was on my honeymoon, and I got a text from Shawn Michaels, and it said, "Can you work with Booker?" Yeah, sure, cool. I'll see you when I get back. And it has been like off and running ever since with him, man. I mean, it is so fun to work with him. And Cody Rhodes told me, you have to let Book be Book. Do not have him play wrestler, broadcast, analyst 101. Just let Booker be Booker.
You mentioned having more freedom since working with Book. With the transition over to CW, I know it's only been 1 week, but have you noticed that you have more freedom over there from like a network standpoint? Are there any differences that fans are going to be able to see in the presentation, not just logo wise and new titles, but from how you and Book from your seat at commentary present the show?
That's a good question, because I haven't said anything that might get me in trouble.
Yet? Well, it's only one
Yet.
show. It's one show, Vic.
No. So it's been one show. I will tell you that the biggest difference I have felt is that CW is behind the brand. CW is behind NXT. I mean, before we even had a TV launch, we were already on one of their NASCAR Xfinity cars. They are behind it so much. They've had guys out at the ACC football games. There's Live Golf coming up. There's another Xfinity race coming up in Miami. And to have them behind us saying, "Hey, we want you. We want to push you. We want you to be the centerpiece of what we're doing." That's been the coolest thing, because it truly adds a little bit of confidence to everybody, knowing that, hey, they're behind us and let's push this envelope. How far can we push it? I will get back to both of you the first time I get yelled at by Sean or Hunter, for sure.
Now, listen, I would imagine that there's just a certain level of USA is obviously been an amazing partner for WWE, and it's years long and it's shows and shows. So NXT, while it was cool for them to have, they had Monday Night Raw. Now they have SmackDown. Like you're no matter what, you were not the biggest WWE property they had. Going to CW, this is CW getting in the WWE business. This is a big, so I can totally understand why it would immediately feel charged on some level.
And it's cool for me personally, because, and both of you will get this too, you don't have the ability anymore to be part of firsts in wrestling. It's very difficult, to be part of something from the ground up. I mean, NXT isn't new, but nobody will ever be able to say, "Hey, I was the voice of the NXT's broadcast television debut." Only Booker and I will ever be able to do that. because that was the first time it ever happened. That's what has a special feel to me too, is because this is uncharted waters, guys. To me, like, yeah, you had the USA shows, but you never had NXT seen at this level in this many households with this sort of paint put on it, so to speak.
How you obviously you hear it from Sean a lot. How often does Triple H still feel like he's involved, invested, talking to you guys about the product?
When we see, Hunter, he knows, man. I mean, I've gotten texts from him of flame emojis, LFG, like he's there watching it. As far as putting his hands on it, and that might be above my pay grade. To me, it's Sean's baby, and that's another thing that's cool because look, growing up, Shawn Michaels is my hero. I mean, legitimately, at the end of the day, the biggest professional influence in my life was Shawn Michaels. He is what drew me to the WWE. I remember him getting insecuried by Owen Hart, and he did the whole collapse thing. You remember that? I saw that on a Sunday morning Superstars on WUAB 43 in Cleveland, and I started crying. And my mom couldn't send me to school the next day because I was still crying. So it was like that's how invested I was in him as a character. And to now be on the other side of things with him in my ear and him going, hey, try this. Hey, what are you thinking here? To be able to pick his brain, I mean, I'm living my dream right now. And when Hunter comes in and you have both of those guys there, how can you not get better? How can you not, as an NIL athlete who knows nothing about this business, walk into the Performance Center with a Matt Bloom and a Norman Smiley and a Terry Taylor and a Fit Finley and not automatically get better? And that's why you've seen a Kalani Jordan and Oba Femi and all these NIL athletes that have come in and turned the game around like that. And it's amazing to see.
You've been in that seat for, I think you said like 7 or 8 years. I do want to ask you, you've seen a lot of call-ups from NXT to the main roster. I want to ask you about the latest one. We saw it just last night. Sexy Red. She went from NXT guest host. She got called up to the main roster. She was on Monday Night Raw. How do you grade her performance as a guest host from NXT to Raw? Did she get better? Did she stay baseline?
Great. It's a great question.
I love Sexy Red
What
because of how Booker reacts. And it's always an easy, boy, you better get your heart, medication going, because he just goes off. She's a joy to be around in the back. She is another person. And I think this is what's cool about professional wrestling now as a whole. It's pop culture again. It's like it's mainstream. Cody Rhodes is just top 5 fanatics, I think, in terms of merchandise. First time ever for a professional wrestler to be in that light with other athletes. And so anything right now from a Logan Paul to a Bad Bunny to a Hardy to a Sexy Red, it's like everybody wants to be here. And it's like, yeah, I remember, in the Attitude Era, Rose, you go to school, you're like, here's my Steve Austin shirt. Like everyone's like, oh, it's so cool. And now
It
it's
wasn't like
again,
that for a long time. It's
and
true.
again, it's like this. So I think someone like Sexy Red coming in, she wants to be here. One, she's very entertaining too, and she's bringing new eyes to the product, and those eyes are sticking with us. That's what's really cool to me about Sexy Red. And you put her on SmackDown. I'd love to see her twerk on Michael Cole. By the way,
Well, no,
I would love
that's
it.
It might
obviously
happen.
that's
Oh my god,
obviously I think that's the big payoff that we could get is that
it's got to
situation.
happen.
Um,
Michael Cole is undefeated in dance competition.
True.
I'm throwing out there
And at
Sexy
WrestleMania.
Red versus Michael
And that was
Cole.
it.
No, I want it to happen too, Vic. I want it to be timed. So like she does it just as the Mets go down like 3 runs in a big game.
Oh man,
And
why
then
would you want to do that to that
and then
man?
she just slaps it right on him at the same time. So on a more serious note, Vic, you went through a tough loss last year, and I was super sorry to hear about your father. And I know how tough that was for you. Um, can you take us through that experience? Because everyone has to go through. Obviously, unfortunately, it's a loss that at some point all of us are going to go through. But not everyone has to deal with that and being on television. So, A, I'm sorry, we're sorry, and B, take us through what that experience was like for you.
Wrestling is what brought us together. That was like the thing we did, and it was the Bretts and the Shans, and he loved Drew McIntyre. And The Undertaker and things like that. But he was sick. I got called the end of July last summer. And what people don't know is that for that whole time, August, September, October, PLE, TV, he was dying, and I knew my time was up. But I was choosing to go do the show because I have a responsibility to the fans, in my opinion. And my dad always said, "What are you gonna do? You're just gonna watch me go to work." That was his philosophy in life. And so what people don't know is that the WWE flew me home every week. They flew me back. What do you need? He's got a doctor's appointment. Great. You're on this flight. They took care of me, my wife. Mackenzie was working with the company at the time, and made sure that I got home. They made sure that I was there. The day was a Tuesday. So I had gone to bed, woke up. Well, I didn't wake up. I was sleeping, and I got pushed. My wife was like, "Hey, wake up. Call your sister."
Take your time. Obviously, that's and at the time you were going through that, the second you get a wake up and call your sister, you have to already in your brain know this is probably not a great.
Oh, yeah. So I told Mackenzie, I said, text Sean, text Cole, text Alicia Taylor, tell them what happened. Tell them, do not tell me not to do the show. I'm doing the show. So I got to the show. I stayed in a back room. Booker came in. Booker knew. No one talked to me all day. Did the show. Nobody had a clue. Bloom didn't know. Russo knew. Fans didn't know. Roster didn't know. I did the show. Show ended, and I left. Put out a statement that night, and that was the day. It was easy to. I don't want this to sound bad. It was easy to get through the day because wrestling was my escape. It was when I was a kid. It was when I was in college. I was able to do my job. Thought I did pretty good that night. Cena was there. Taker was there. That was like the NXT WrestleMania is
Oh,
what we called it.
yeah. Oh, so it was that episode. So because I was going to ask you, what was your logic in I'm not missing the show? Like, was it because it was such a big episode,
No,
or
I'm not
just
missing
because it
the
was for
show.
you?
It could have been any show. I wasn't missing it. I have a duty, I feel, sitting in that seat as a wrestling fan to deliver to the wrestling audience. And people tune in. They do not care that Vic Tripolianti's father died. They don't. They don't care what Roman Reigns is going through. They don't care what Jey Uso or Cody or whomever it is. They want to be entertained. They want to forget about their day. We're that outlet. We're that escape, so to speak. So I felt a duty to the fans. I also know my dad would have wanted me to do the show. He would not have wanted me to get on a plane and fly home because he would have told me, what's the difference going to be if you fly home today or you fly home tomorrow? There's no difference. So I immediately flew out, went back for that week, flew back, did TV Tuesday the next week, flew back out. Hunter called me during that time. He and I had a nice conversation, and really, they were telling me to stop working. That Cole said, take your time. Sean said, take your time. And I never wanted to because this, to me, being the voice of NXT or the voice of Raw or SmackDown or whatever it is the greatest honor for me. And it also is me doing a tip of the cap to my dad who took me to my first event, who sat there and watched it with me, who bought me the action figures, who would watch every single week. And he always used to tell me the best part about watching me on TV is he could mute me. So I always thought that, but he knew what was going on, man. Like he watched Raw and he watched SmackDown and he'd tell you what he liked and he'd tell you what he didn't like. And he'd always go, why are they doing this? And I'd explain it to him, and he'd go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that Obafemi, man, that's a big son of a bitch. Like, you wouldn't want to meet him in an alley. Like, and that's what we're trying to do. So I always would gauge stuff off of my dad, and the idea of not working that day never once crossed my mind. I knew going into No Mercy, which was in Bakersfield at the end of August, that he had weeks left. And I made the decision. I told Sean, I said, I made the decision that I will not miss a TV. I will not miss a show. I give you my word. And they all looked at me like, dude, this is more important. And so nobody in the company asked me to work. They were actually encouraging me not to go home. And it was my decision to do it because I know that's what he would have wanted me to do. Matter of fact, the last thing me, him, and my son did was watch Fastlane. And he couldn't speak at the time, but he could grunt. And he could hold your hand. And they'd come out, and my son would say something, and he'd go, huh, because he was still there.
He was still,
Even in
so he
his
was still
final-
able to take it in. He just couldn't communicate anymore.
He'd fall asleep, here and there, obviously, because he was sick. But that was the final thing all three of us did as a unit, was watch Fastlane.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And while we're talking about your family, before I let you go, I do want to ask about Mackenzie. Obviously, she's not with the company anymore. First of all, send her my love and regards. And how are things going for her?
She's making some rounds with some appearances still here and there. She's still tied into the wrestling community, but she started that jewelry brand headlined by MM, and it started off as e-commerce, and then she got a store, and now she actually has an announcement coming up for something bigger than just a short run at a store that she'll be making. But man, that it's so impressive to see her. She has another side project that wrestling fans are going to be very interested in seeing and purchasing down the line as well. Another announcement she'll make here in hopefully another 2 or 3 weeks. But you know how it is, man. When you get that phone call, you're never prepared for it. And it was tough for us because I'm still there and she's not, but she's been so supportive. She continues to watch. Actually, Roxanne Perez, you'll see the thing that says Prodigy around her neck.
Mhm.
Mackenzie made that for her.
Oh, wow. That's
That was part of the custom jewelry that she's been doing. So
you guys are now part of a time-honored tradition of families where one person is let go and the other one is still with the company. Like, this is not the first or last time that this has happened.
And we're
Your
probably
commentary
down the road.
partner Jerry the King Lawler went through that too.
Exactly. Siblings, partners, father, son. It's happened. It happens. It's a crazy business.
It goes on, but everyone's still supportive of her, and so that's really cool to see as well.
You can catch Vic Joseph and our dear friend Booker T every single Tuesday night now on the CW for NXT. Tonight's show in St. Louis. We'll be watching. Vic, thank you for making time, bro. Wish I saw you more often. And again, sorry what happened with the Commanders and the Browns.
I thought you were going to end this on a high note. I don't know why you needed to take another pot shot at the Browns. Just remind me it's cool. I got it. I was there thinking of you Sunday as I had thrown down 13 beers by the start of the fourth quarter to ease my trouble.
You know what? By the way, I think I've waited enough time. It's time for me to send some other texts too. I didn't text Miz. I haven't texted King, and I haven't texted King in a long time too. Maybe time to reach out to King.
Ryan Ward. I mean, there's even cameramen that are Browns
Throw
fans.
people under the bus now. Who else?
Yeah, Johnny Wrestling.
Johnny Wrestling.
He
He put on social media, so I got this shed. You know about the shed. It's all Brownsed out, all Cleveland out. And he's so upset, he goes, "You need to burn the shed." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He's like, burn it to the ground. I'm like, "I'm not burning the shed, Johnny. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You need to burn it. You know what you need to do." I'm like, "Stop. Just stop."
Vic, thank you, bro.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.